Talking Music with Big Andy. This week, Jess Guise is talking music with me, Big Andy. Welcome to the podcast. I have with me this week Jess Guise from the band Guise.
Hello, how are you?
Hello, I'm fine, thank you. How are you doing?
Yeah, not bad, thank you. I had laser eye surgery last week, so things have been a bit blurry for a while, but I can now see you, so that's an improvement.
Well, I don't know. Some people were saying maybe not. I will say that when I was researching for this, I did have a couple of problemettes.
Oh, okay.
One was the fact that I found 3 different bands all with the name Guise.
Yeah, there's a new one. Yeah, there's a new one.
There's a rock band from Liverpool.
Yeah, they didn't exist when we started. So
yeah. And there was, I think there's an American band as well.
I
think they're called The Guys.
Yes, yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, slightly different.
Totally different, yeah.
Totally different.
Guys, I have only very recently discovered the rock band from Liverpool. They have taken our name, so that may be a slightly contentious issue.
Yeah,
I perhaps can't talk about. I don't know.
Okay, fair enough.
It's been tagged to various people, but I mean it's not a big deal. But
also when I was looking up to try and find out about the bands, the thing that I noticed more than anything was that 90% of the things that I could find out about you were actually to do with your husband. And kind of mentioned the fact that you were married to him, and then so gave a bit of information about you, and then went back to him.
Well, people are really interested in him, which is baffling to me. I find him terribly But no, to be fair, I mean, so the thing about the band, and we actually have been a band for a really long time, but it's called Guise because that is my actual name, which is why I think I kind of get dibs on the name. Do you know what I mean? It's my name.
Yeah.
But we started sort of doing it properly in 2015. So both myself and my co-singer Laura, who sings with me, and it's a band that can be solo or duo or trio or quartet. Like there's 4 of us sort of officially in it, but it is kind of me. And then if I get Laura as well, that's brilliant. If I get Titus as well, it's brilliant. If I get Keith as well, so much the better. It's all versions are Guys, which is why it's my name. But we started it a long, long time ago. But we all worked in theatre.
Right.
So Laura and I were both actors. Titus, a director and a writer. Keith actually is a professional drummer, so he's the exception to the rule. But we all had lots and lots of other things going on, and it was very much something we did sometimes. And I just started taking it really seriously. So we'd sort of put some songs up, and we're starting to get gigs, and we did a telly slot on London Live and things. And then I met Frank and completely freaked out because an intimidating sort of level to measure yourself against when you're like, oh, maybe I'll have a go at singing. Do you know what I mean? But it is the thing I've always wanted to do the most, but it's always also been the most terrifying thing for the same reason, because it matters so much. Not that acting wasn't terrifying. Acting can be terrifying too, but you have other people's words, other actors and a director to hide behind.
Yeah.
Whereas with the music, there's fuck all. It's just you. So it's really scary. So I kind of freaked out and stopped doing it, I guess, for a bit. I also I was in a show for several years, and when you're in a show in London 6 nights a week, you can't gig. You can't do anything else. It's not really possible. So then we started taking it a bit more seriously. So the band has been around for a really long time, but it wasn't necessarily like a huge deal, shall we say? Even to me, it was really, really, really important to me, but it didn't. There were lots of other things going on, and then I started taking it seriously. I kind of summoned up the courage to say to Frank, "Look, this is actually what I've always wanted to do. Like, it's the thing that I want to do most." And I stopped acting a few years ago because I just sort of got a bit tired of it, and I'm now doing a doctorate in psychology instead.
Oh, okay.
So that allowed me to do gigs and stuff. And Frank his world is quite it's intense and it's invasive, and you can't really exist in it and in denial of that. Like it's
No,
not it's
no,
not a normal job, it isn't.
no.
So we thought, well, fuck it, let's go on tour together. And we went on this magic tour where I was first on. It was the first time I'd ever done it. It was absolutely terrifying, and I was so scared. Fortunately, he does actually have the nicest fans in the entire world, many of whom feel like my little supportive family now. They're so great. So it was really fun, and we went on tour with Micah Schnabel as well, who was just wonderful, and Vanessa Jean Speckman. They're very dear friends of ours. And then COVID hit, so I was just starting to launch it. You know what I mean? We were just doing that, and then COVID happened. So yeah. So therefore, necessarily, I never, because we did the live streams. I don't know if you're sort of familiar with the live streams we did from our lounge that Frank did every week, and I sometimes played on. And I am now sort of inextricably connected to him in a way that's not just the legally binding marriage contract, which I'm thrilled about, obviously. But like, it was more connected than it was intended. It was going to be that one tour, and then I was going to go off and do my own thing for a bit, but it just didn't pan out that way.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
will, that is going to happen. There's a record coming out in May, and there will be other tours and other shows, and branching out from under his very lovely umbrella soon. But yeah, that's kind of why I suspect we're so connected, because I hadn't really hadn't been something I'd pushed very much
Yeah.
prior to being with Frank. So yeah,
Well, there are worse people to be connected with, I'm sure.
yeah. I mean, I think so. Obviously, I've put quite a lot of my eggs in that basket. So yeah, he's a giddy, and it's cheating. I'm not in any sort of. I'm in no way unaware of how fortunate it is to have that platform if you're trying to launch your own career, of how lucky I am, and
Yeah.
how artistic it is. I've absolutely cheated my way into this position of lots of his lovely fans knowing who I am, but we were stuck in our house for a year. There wasn't masses we could do about it.
I mean, to be honest, though, I mean, the thing is, I think that whatever the situation you were in, I think you would have been able to get there eventually, because of the fact that, I mean, you do have a fantastic voice,
Thank you very much.
and your music is I don't know how to. It kind of has so much feeling to it. It's got so much emotion in it, and such a variety of emotions as well.
Yeah.
Which kind of it affects you when you listen to music like that. You automatically you have kind of I don't know what the word is. I was going to say visceral, but I'm not sure that's right. But you have a kind of you kind of almost have like a physical reaction to that emotion, and
Yeah.
it's
I mean, if
really,
you do, then I'm thrilled, because that means I've done something right. That's wonderful. I mean, the reality is we don't have masses of music out there yet. We put out that EP, just was the first thing we'd properly put out ever. Do you know what I mean? I've got enough songs for about 3-4 records that I've been writing since I was 14. I've been doing it my whole life. I've just was scared.
yeah,
But that was the first thing we really put out, and there's a new record that's finished, which will be out in a few months. So that will, I think, triple, if not quadruple, the number of songs out there, and hopefully then people can get a bit more of a picture of what my writing is and what I'm trying to say,
yeah,
and who I am musically. And I think those people who there are lots and lots of people who feel very invested in our world and who we feel very close to. And we're lots, like the live streams, I knew most people's at handles, whatever you call them, their names,
yeah,
recognise lots of people, and it felt like a big group of granted thousands, but like a big group of friends, you know.
Yeah.
Like, and a lot of those people know quite a lot of my songs, and are like, Jesus Christ, will you just release some of them already? Listen to this.
What I find interesting is you've only got like 2 official videos
Yeah,
out, but there are a lot of live like fan videos.
are there?
Yes, on YouTube there are quite a few.
I try not to Google myself for my own sanity, so I don't know. But
The,
yeah,
the the quality ranges in the actual videos,
filming, yeah, I'm
but
sure, and possibly the playing as well. I wouldn't be surprised.
no. It's the playing is fine. It's not a problem at all. It's sometimes the sound quality isn't quite what it could be, but no, but it's and it's, I mean, the thing is that you have built up a following by playing live, and not just touring with Frank. You've played your own
Yeah, no, I
gigs
have.
as well, so you built up a following from that as well. But let's go through the band. Apart from yourself,
Yeah,
you sing and play guitar. Yeah,
I do. Yeah, I
uh,
write songs as well. They're all my
you're
own.
all, you do all the writing. Yeah,
So
then you've
far, I
got
mean, my other band members might yet, where it's open. But it's kind of it's my authorial voice currently. But that's just the way it's gone so far. We might.
according to the things I've read, you are apparently the heart and soul of the band.
Yeah, that's copy that I didn't write myself, but it is true. Yeah, it's my heart and soul. But that's not at all to say that the rest of the band don't put their hearts and soul into it, because they do. Laura and Titus, and Keith was joined the band later, but Laura and Titus are firstly some of my dearest friends. Like, we were friends for a long, long time. Before we started singing together, we all met at university. But they have the amount of time and effort and love they've poured into the songs is the only reason I ever believed that I should do it, or that it was worth taking the time. They gave me the confidence, their belief in their love for it. It matters to us all a lot.
So
Especially I'm the writer so far.
just so it's Laura Hannah is the other vocalist, and she plays keyboards as well. Is that
She
correct?
does, yeah, and that's sort of something that we're developing a bit more. Yeah, she's an excellent keyboardist. We haven't always. She's really the reason I got Laura in is because she has the most extraordinary instrument vocally. She's one of the most wonderful singers I've ever encountered.
Your voices work so well together.
Well, see, I love it. They're very, very different, our voices, but I love that, and I love the range that it gives us. And we
Yeah.
actually met. So Laura and I met in a musical at university, and I wasn't often in musicals at university because I can't sing like you're supposed to be able to sing for a musical. It's not my style. And Laura has proper operatic training, right? So we're quite seriously different. But we did a duet in this musical, and I was like, that actually sounds really cool.
Yeah, they do work so well together. They complement each other really well.
Yeah, I think so. They're sort of two sides of a coin. They're quite different, but they.
Yeah, and then you got Titus Holder is the bass player, but he also plays keyboards as well.
He also plays keyboard. So Titus is there. So I think I played my songs to him before I played them to anyone else in the world, pretty much. And he was like, "You're an idiot. You should do this. These are good songs." And I'm forever grateful to him. But Titus himself, he plays loads of stuff. He's a really, really good musician. He's an excellent bassist. He's really imaginative and playful and unusual in his bass playing. He also plays the guitar. Though not often on this record, he does a little bit of electric. He's very tasteful. Do you know what I mean? And we needed some tasteful moments. And Frank's obviously played some guitar on the record that's coming out because he was producing it. And I was like, I need like some tasteful licks, and he was like, I can't do tasteful. You'll need which is true. But T is very, very delicate and elegant in his musical taste. But he actually comes from like a funk soul background.
Oh, right.
Very different energy, and he brings that in, which is cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, he also plays keys in a similar way, in a sort of very gentle, very sensitive manner. And so and I play a little bit of keys as well. So we're all not terribly, but I do play a little bit. So we all do a bit of that. But T's probably, he definitely is the most versatile of us.
And then Keith Barry's the drummer.
Yeah. So Keith is a jazz drummer, actually. So again, we've got all these little different things coming together. It's quite cool.
It's quite interesting, the fact that with all those different elements. The thing that I've seen you classed as everywhere is folk pop.
Folk pop, because that's me. I don't think that's what the songs are. So the folk, I mean, I grew up in the folk world. Like my dad was a big folkie, and I mean, I wish the songs were more folky than they are. Like I wish I was a proper folk musician, because that's not quite what comes out of me. They come out more singer-songwritery poppy than old school folk. But I grew up listening to Richard Thompson, Martin Simpson, Catherine Tickle, or Tickell, depending on how you want to say it, like proper old Northumbrian piping folk. Do you know what I mean? Really,
yeah.
Well, and also Dire Straits or Fleetwood Mac, and that era of rock pop, I suppose. And yeah, so the songs that come out tend to be a bit of a combo of those kind of influences, I guess.
And it's interesting because some of them sound. Some of the songs I've heard sound more pop than folk, and some of them sound more folk than pop. So it's kind of an interesting mix of stuff. So you did. You got the Boy and the Thief came out in 2015.
Yes, it did. Though it was very sort of cobbled together, that release. It's not very professionally put together. So we put that on SoundCloud. We might be deleting it off SoundCloud soon, because most of the songs on it are the ones that I really loved, because I love the songwriting on that tiny EP, but the production was our first go. We'd not done it ever before. We didn't have any money at all. So I was super broke. So it's not, production wise, it just doesn't service the songs as well as I want to, although it was very well engineered. We just didn't know about mixing or mastering or anything at all at the time. Right. So we're re-recording several of those songs. So The Boy and the Thief, Ida Down, and The Right Track, which are on that record, and Boy Child actually, although so all four are going to be on the album when it comes out, because I love the songs and I've always loved them, which is why they were the first four I put out, but they needed re-recording. Oh
no, that's good. I'd like to hear those.
Well, you will soon, hopefully. It should be May, I think, the release.
And you got the Fun Part EP,
yes,
which came out 2020.
Yes.
And that's where the two...
March 2020, it really couldn't have been worse timing. You know what I mean?
And that's where the two videos come from, isn't it? So you got the Fun Part itself, which is a fantastic video.
Thanks. Yeah, so actually Titus, my bassist, a super multi-talented bunch that I hang out with, he's also a director, as a theatre director and film director, so he shot that video. Right. And we did it in like a day with, again, zero budget. It was just fun.
The fun part, but it's the absolute worst. My phone's deadly silent. This is why I should never, must never, ever call first. And I hardly know you, only just learned your name, and then it changed. But I think I like you all the same. Oh, it's like in the dark, when you can't tell your head from your heart, or the sky from the land, and nothing feels like it's still on the ground. And this is when I should run like I always do, but I don't think I can from you, and I'm not sure I want to, and that's new. But it's fine, I'm just terrified. We could go out sometime, watch a film, or I don't really mind. I just like to be near you, and that's new. But it's fine, I'm just terrified. Actually, when is the fun part? After this it gets worse. I start thinking and feeling and reading the wrong things into all of your words. Run away if you can do it quickly. If you can't say I didn't warn you. I tried to warn you, just in a roundabout way. Oh, it's like in the dark, when you can't tell your head from your heart, or the sky from the land, and nothing feels like it's on the ground. This is when I should run like I always do, but I don't think I can from you, and I'm not sure I want to, and that's new, but it's fine, I'm just terrified. We could go out sometime, watch a film, or I don't really mind, I just like to be near you.
I just like the kind of surprise, if you like, about the video, which is really cool, because you do get this thing like, you know, I suppose there is this thing that women are kind of like dress themselves up and do themselves up for a date, and especially for a blind date or whatever. When you meet somebody the first time, you're supposed to look the part and you're supposed to look wonderful, and
You might feel like you're supposed to, yeah, for sure.
yeah. And but you don't often think about the fact that men might do the same. And neither of you actually are representing yourselves as such. You're just kind of like putting on a show for each other.
That's kind of that is the whole point, because one of the things that I like when I'm writing, and one of the things I like about the fun part, is a bit of a sense of humor in the songs, self-reflective humor.
Yeah.
And that song is basically about how, like, it's supposed to be exciting when you meet someone that you really like. And, like, it can be, don't get me wrong, but it's also awful. It's completely horrible, because you find yourself really vulnerable. And that, you know, I never liked being vulnerable, personally.
Yeah.
Even though I spend my entire life doing things that make me vulnerable. It's not a straightforward, lovely feeling, is it? It's complicated. And that's what the song's about. But it is about that, like, you know, everything is that period of time when you're first dating, where you're like, oh yeah, cool, I don't care if you text back, whatever, but you're actually freaking out on the inside, dying of fear. And that's kind of what it's about. So it's about the pretense that you, exactly as you say, that you sort of, the pretense that you make when you first meet someone that you like. And that's what the video is about. So I've had a few, because obviously in the video, for people that are like, what? I start putting my makeup on, and then I just keep going until I end up in full clown regalia. Yeah. And the point being that it's partly a presentation of someone that you're not, but then when the other guy, when he comes as a clown at the end, it is that whole thing that actually we are the same. We're all trying to be our best selves.
Yeah.
First meet, and in a way that's quite nice, that we're trying to, you know, craft who we want you to think we are. Like, this is the bit of me that I like, please like it too. It's kind of
it's I think the thing as well is it's really nice when you meet someone that you connect with, and then you finally get to the point where you don't have to put on that mask and that show anymore, and you suddenly can look at each other and realize that you were both doing it, and kind of go, oh right, it wasn't just me.
It wasn't just me. No, everyone's like, you know, hiding their darker parts, or least less attractive parts. But then, as you say, when you really love someone, I think I love the things that most people wouldn't necessarily consider to be Frank's best attributes. I don't love them any less than the bits that, you know, the shiny performer that you meet when you first meet him.
I think the other thing is the fact that you see when you have a personal relationship with somebody that's that close, you see them in a different way. You see them on a day-to-day basis, and you see all of the sides of them, not just the ones that they want to project, or the ones that are projected by what they do.
Yeah, totally. And that's kind of, I think, what we're all looking for. Well, maybe not all, that's a massive generalization, but most people are looking for that level of intimacy where you are just known, and you are just yourself, and you are loved. Like, I think that's the aim.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that, you know, I'm very fortunate to have found that. But when I wrote the fun part, I had not. So I hadn't.
Oh, I see.
It's one of the songs where lots of people people say to me, "Oh, I can really hear Frank's influence on that." And I was like, "That's funny, because I'd never heard of Frank Turner when I wrote that song."
Now, I was going to ask if that was about anybody in particular, or if it was a general.
It was written, I mean, it is a general point, but it was written at a point, at a stage where I had met someone that I really liked. It didn't go very well. So yeah, it's not about Frank, and I think because of when the songs came out, because I had them in my back pocket for such a long time, and didn't do anything with them because of fear, and various other things. I think people assumed that all the songs that I was releasing were about Frank, because just like you said, that's what they knew about me, was that I was
Yeah.
Frank's wife. But actually, there's only a small handful that are about Frank, and quite a lot of them were written before, and even some that I wrote after I met him were not necessarily about him. You know, you can call, and they're not always necessarily about me either. They often are. They usually are. That one is. The fun part definitely is. But yeah, so I do that. The subject of that song sadly completely broke my heart. So, bastard. But
Well, the
it's a
thing is,
long time ago now, so it's all right.
there are different ways of dealing with heartbreak. Writing a song about them is probably the least damaging way.
I agree. I think it's exactly what you should do. I mean, it's a funny thing being the subject of a song that someone's written, though, because that was new to me and to Frank. And that was something when we met each other. He had always been the person who was writing songs about other people, quite often brutally honest songs about other people. Sometimes too honest, arguably. But no, you know, he was really used to being that person. So, and I was also used to being that person,
Yeah.
but at a lesser extent. I was used to writing songs. So for him to have songs written about him was a bit like, what? For me, I didn't, you know, it was quite confusing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. And people always assume, they go, oh, it must be so lovely to have songs written about you. And I'm like, it is sometimes. But sometimes it's like, do you really, is that really how you think it happened? Because that's not how I remember it at all. Like, so, it's a strange experience.
Yeah, I can imagine. I must never been in that position. I've never had anyone write a song about me, I must admit.
Not yet.
Not yet, no. But the other video you've got, the other thing is an even more personal song, which is Brothers in Arms.
Brother in Arms, yes.
Brother
It's
in Arms,
singular
sorry.
brother because
Brother,
it's a
yeah.
reference to Brothers in Arms, the Dire Straits song. That's it.
Yeah.
What it's referring to.
I mean, that's a very personal song and a very personal video as well. So, I mean, how did that come about?
Well, so the video specifically, or the song?
Well, both.
So the song, that song started as a riff, and then I wrote it for my brother and about my dad. So my dad passed away very suddenly when I was 18, and he was a giant amongst men. I'm not at all biased. He was amazing, but he was a wonderful, wonderful man. He taught me to play the guitar. And I still play his guitars when I play live. And for myself and my brother, who I'm very close to, that was obviously life-changingly awful.
Yeah.
And we responded to it differently. And I think I wrote the song at a time when I didn't think my brother was very happy. Like, we're really close, and I think he was just a bit unsure about what to do with life at that particular moment in time. He's in a really good place now. You know, we all have good weeks and bad weeks. But,
yeah.
And so I wrote it for my brother, and about my dad, and it sort of refers to Dire Straits in the first line. I love Dire Straits. I'm such a big Dire Straits fan, because my dad was, and because I was raised to be, you know, correct about my opinion on Dire Straits. But yeah, so that's what the song was kind of about, and it was about losing my dad and trying to respond to the new worse world that I found myself in without him, but to respond in a way that I thought that he would be proud of, which is still something to aspire towards every day. Yeah. So then when it came to do a video, so I mean, the thing with videos you have to understand is they're quite I don't know how much people even watch them anymore. It's one of those odd things. We're not in MTV land anymore. So there's no budget. There's no money. You know, there's no money behind these things. And it's not something that I feel able to put my own money behind, because all the money I put toward recording. Just finished. So you kind of have to be quite imaginative when purse strings are tight. And I had all these videos of myself as a kid, myself and my brother and my two cousins, who I was raised with as a child. And obviously the song is about my brother. and my dad. So I kind of went through it was my mum and stepfather many years ago had transferred them onto DVDs, so I could go through them all and find edits, and it took a long time, and there was a lot of crying when you're going through and every time my dad pops up into screen, I'm just like, oh God, it's awful, really. But it was lovely. It was really therapeutic, and so that's it really couldn't be more personal. It is my story about my family, and the lovely thing about it is that even though that is true, I get so many people telling me how connected they feel to that song because they've had a similar loss, or something that in it resonates with them from their own grief or similar, which I love. But it really couldn't be more my story, so it seemed like a really good thing to show some of me as a kid and my brother as a kid and my dad, because I want the songs kind of keep him alive to me a lot.
Yeah.
The other reason, this is just not to get too deep, but the other reason that I hadn't, so when I was a teenager, this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to write and I wanted to be a singer, and my dad taught me to play. My dad introduced me to the idea of writing at all. He didn't write himself, but he played and he sang beautifully. And when I lost him, I then couldn't play the guitar for several years. I just couldn't do it. So that's another reason that I shelved it for such a long time. And it took a lot of healing. I don't know. It just took time before I could do it again. And it took, I think, 6 or 7 plays after I finished writing Brother in Arms before I could play it without singing. Play it without crying myself. And it's all part of the healing process, music. That's the power of it. It's a lovely thing, but that video felt like the right thing to do.
It is a lovely song, and the video is incredible, to be honest. And
He was born in different days, before Bob or Dire Straits or the songs that he taught us. A life of usual complaints, little losses, little gains, eldest son, youngest daughter. But a heart can grow old like that. Yes, a heart can grow old like that. We were never much the same. You were wise and I was vain. I was words, you were numbers. Little sister, big brother, little need of each other, till the ground came from under us. But don't we all grow up like that? Yes, don't we all grow up like that?
I think the thing for me is, and this was what I was saying about having the very physical reaction to the emotion of your music, is the fact that it's not often that you see people in any kind of creative art. It's not often that you see people put so much of themselves and their personal story out there for people to look at. It's a very raw thing to do, and it strikes me as being incredibly brave to do as well, because especially in this day and age, people get attacked for doing things like that, and I have no idea why people do that. But to lay yourself bare, to lay yourself that open to the public, I think is incredibly brave, and it's a very. It also makes you feel that you are, in a way, privileged to see that and to feel that story, to be part of that story, even just by listening to it.
Thank you, that's really kind. Well, that's lovely, and to me it kind of helps. And you're so right, like people are people are awful on the internet. You know, people are much worse on the internet than they ever would be in real life, and people feel like because you put something out into the world that it's then fair game for them to comment on it, regardless of whether that comment is helpful, constructive, positive or negative or whatever. They feel like it's an invitation, which it isn't. It's a sharing, you know. And I mean, obviously you have to accept that that's part of what's going to happen, because it is. But I would be really sad to let that stop me. I mean, I did for several years. I didn't share because it was too hard and it was too scary. And at a certain point, it's like, well, either the songs have a life or they don't. And the cost of them having a life is that risk, you know, that is it. And I think there's the flip side, and there are so many benefits, but the flip side of the advantage, the leg up that I've got from being with Frank and him supporting me and helping me, is that there are lots of people, there are, you know, a handful of people out there who are like, well, it's just because you're his wife. And I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not pretending otherwise, you know. I'm not, but like, do you want me to just not want to do this then? Because I'm not going to do that. And there are people that feel, there are lots of people in the punk world as well, and I love the punk world, having known nothing. I'm not really, I know this may be a surprise, but I'm not really a punk. But like, there are people who sort of hate everything that Frank does, and then they hate everything that I am, and I'm definitely not a punk, so they hate me, and it would show up just to just say a couple of mean words, you know. I'm like, oh, cool, thanks for being here, that's sweet. So it is part of it, and it is crap, and I hate it. But oddly, I think with Brother, because it's so personal and it is so honest, I don't think I've had any of that from it, because I think people, they just don't feel, because if you literally go, here is my broken heart, it takes a really awful human being to then be snide about that. Do you know what I mean? It really does. Yeah. So actually, in some ways, that vulnerability has kind of protected me.
No, I can see that. That. But I feel it's like you've opened your heart and soul to the world, and it's kind of, you don't get to see that from people very often, and it's, as I say, I feel that it's a privilege to be able to see that.
That's really kind of you to say. It means a lot. I'm glad that it has affected you. That means that I didn't waste my time.
No. Yeah. So at the moment, with the whole, I mean, you know, the lockdown things are easing, where we're getting, you know, getting told we could go back out there and infect everybody. So are you looking to then start up doing more, you know, your own sort of solo stuff, solo tours and that sort of thing?
We will be. I mean, I think the first months of this year, I still feel very tentative about. I think people are nervous about buying tickets and nervous about things happening, and winter is bad with diseases, you know, it is. So Frank obviously had to pull his whole January, February tour for lots of very complicated reasons, essentially just Omicron. So I'm not jumping out there immediately, but I think there are a couple of things happening in March, and then for me it will all be about the record, which is coming out in May. So I will definitely be touring with the release of the record. The exact details of that are still being finalised. There's a couple of different variables at play. But yeah, definitely though, and hopefully I'm hoping there'll be a band tour, or at least like a duo tour, a trio tour at some point as well, because it is a very different beast playing Laura Titus and Keith. It's so much fun, you know. I really love it, and we don't get to do it very often. So
sort of late spring, summer, early autumn is going to be a lot easier, because you're going to get a lot more open air gigs and festivals and things like that. So
yeah, and there are a few that are already announced. There are a few festivals over the summer. We've got this gig with an orchestra coming up in mid-March, the 13th of March. Is it the 13th or 17th? Don't quote me, I'm not sure. There's a gig with Buzzwell and Nyberg. They're called a couple of old friends of Frank's, actually, but people I know who create pop-up orchestras, and lots of artists from Extra Mile are going to do a track with a pop-up orchestra. So that's in the diary. There's a cruise in the States, a Flogging Molly cruise that I've been on as a punter, or as, you know, I've gone with Frank a few times, but this year I am in theory playing it as well. But I can't actually, like, that my brain doesn't understand that cruises are possible anymore. Do you know what I mean? It's like lots of people crammed together in a boat.
Yeah.
Like, it
Oh,
doesn't seem possible, but I'm hoping it'll work.
so, Extra Mile, the record company you're with, you've done a couple of things with them before, with sort of like groups of the bands that are on there before, haven't you?
Yeah, so Extra Mile. So obviously, Extra Mile. This is all part and parcel of the wonderful nepotism that I'm so lucky to have afforded. But they are like family. Extra Mile. Frank's been with Charlie, who runs Extra Mile, who started it, is also his manager, and they've been together since the dawn of time. And they are dear friends. So Anthea and Danny, and then Evan and all the gang that work for Extra Mile. It's the three of them really, but they're pals. They're really good friends. They're Frank's extended family. So they very kindly. I mean, when I sent the record, I was a bit like, I really might hate this. Please feel free to say if you hate it. It's totally fine if you don't want to put it out. But it's not. It's a family operation, Yeah. And that's also true of the artists. Most of the artists on the label are people that I either consider really close friends or would like to get to know better until I can consider them really close friends. They're all really cool, and it is a really supportive environment. And we did these gathering shows over the summer, which were all Extra Mile artists. They were like day long shows, and it's a community, and that's true of the fans, the people that like the label as well. They are a community too, and there's a really lovely vibe around the whole thing. So yeah, we've done a few things.
I must admit, I've only been looking into this for a while, because I did the whole season last year of these shows, and I started off doing bands that I already knew and bands that I was already following, and then I looked at bands that they were following and that kind of thing. So I thought, well, I really want to do a second season. So the end of last year, I started looking at different bands and looking at what sort of bands I'd like to interview, what people I'd like to interview. And there were a couple of places I looked online, and your name came up a couple of times in lists, or the band name came up a couple of times in lists for bands to watch out for new releases coming out. And I thought, okay, let's have a look. And then I looked at some of the live videos, and I thought, I really like this. I like the sound. I like the voice. As I say, the way that your and Laura's voices work together. And it's funny because I found this a few times towards the end of last year, and I'm finding it now with the bands I'm looking into this year. I'm coming across bands, and yours is one of them, where I'm listening to it and thinking, how did I not know about this band? How did I miss this band? How did I not hear about them?
In our case, it's because we have only just started doing it properly, really. So it's not, give yourself a break.
But you know what I mean?
I know what you mean. Yeah, it's very easy to miss people. There's so much out there.
And I just kind of I really like what you do, and it kind of, it's weird because of the fact that I kind of dabble in that kind of folk pop sort of stuff quite often. I like, I mean, the two artists that I really got into about 5 or 6 years ago were Beth Orton and Catherine Williams.
Oh, I love Catherine Williams.
And I thought, I would have thought that you would have been mentioned in the same sort of things that I'm seeing them mentioned.
I normally would be, but that's sort of exactly what I mean in that I'm getting outside of Frank's umbrella. That world is where I was aiming for, but the idea was to use the sort of Frank tour to springboard into other things that are a bit more appropriate, arguably, for the kind of music that I make. Because actually, honestly, a Frank Turner crowd, they're very wide ranging, and they're very interested in different kinds of music, but it's not an obvious, obviously very similar, the kind of music that I play. So lots of them have been, extraordinarily lovely and really, really like it. And lots of them are like, well, I need a shouty man. There's no shouty man here. Can I have a shouty man, please? So, which is totally fair enough, because it's a different world. So you're absolutely right. Like, Extra Mile is much more sort of punk, and it's not it's a natural fit because it's my family.
Yeah.
And they do have, quite a diverse range of acts. They have Skinny Lister, who are sort of punk folk, but there's some proper folk players in that band, you know. They're really cool. And then, but yeah, so the people that my biggest influences are people like, I don't know if you know Dar Williams or Anais Mitchell, Beth Orton's up there as well. Like people like that. That world is still a place that I need to tap into, because I ended up spending a lot more time in the world that in the springboard world than intended. But it's a really nice world to be in.
Yeah.
So that's not something I would ever complain about. But you're right, it's not the obvious.
No, it's
category. Like.
So, I mean, your influences, I mean, you mentioned a couple of people there, and you were saying about growing up listening to Dire Straits and that kind of thing. What sort of things influence you to sort of your songwriting and your style of writing?
Well, so I originally started writing, I think, when I discovered Dar Williams. He's my greatest inspiration, and if I have to pick a favorite artist, it would be her. Right. She is magic. She's still relatively niche. Lots of people have never heard of her, so yeah. But she is a singer-songwriter from the States. I've seen her a couple of times, and she writes narrative stories. She writes a lot of wit, but she has beautiful voice, and her guitar playing is similar to me. So she's always been a huge influence, and it's that sense of wit and humour, I think, being available in song as opposed to it always being really earnest, is a thing that I definitely first encountered in her writing. So she's a huge influence. I basically now am influenced by anything and everything I come across. So the stuff that's coming out on this new record, because I had this backlog of songs, they're all, most of them are not brand new. Do you know what I mean? Some of them are. Right. Most of them have been around for a few years, because I didn't want to lose them forever if I never put them out, you know. But moving forwards, like writing at the moment, I'm actually getting folkier currently. I'm writing sort of story songs about people that I've known through the years. There are places that really influence me. Northumberland is a massive sort of, whenever I pick up my guitar, I find my head goes to Northumberland, because I spent a lot of time there as a kid, and it's where I first started going to like folk clubs and folk events with my dad. Right. Yeah. That world remains very influential, but everything and anything that I hear, and now I hear so much more now because obviously I'm married to a punk, like I hear stuff that I would never otherwise have listened to, and I've discovered bands like War on Women, who are a feminist punk band who I would never have come across, just wouldn't, but because I don't really like screamy shouty punk, right? It's just not my thing. But my God, do I think they're amazing. Like it's because they're angry about things that I'm angry about. And it's so, whereas normally a lot of the time I go to a punk gig and it's men being angry men, and I don't really like being around angry men for reasons, you know. It doesn't make me feel comfortable, and lots of people do, and that's great, but I don't. Male anger is not a thing I enjoy being near, because I have lots of negative connotations around it. But female anger I can deal with. So maybe that's really, really narrow and lame, but I just don't. And sometimes I like, there's a lot of punk isn't actually angry either. Like if you come across Pet Needs, who are it's a mile. Like it's not then there's no anger, but there's so much humour in what they write. Like it's so funny.
I think sometimes people lose the humour. Yeah. Or they don't see the humour in some of the stuff because of the angry sound.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think that's fair. Yeah. And that is, it's just that, you know, if there's a big group of screaming, shouting men, I am not someone that's going to be like, awesome, I'm jumping in the pit. I will be someone who would rather not be near that. Yeah. And that's just a sort of instinctive thing. But over time, learning to engage with the bands first, I start to feel more comfortable in a pit or in that context, because you start to understand what it is they're connecting with. Whereas when I first arrived in that sort of world, and hardcore gigs, or doom gigs even, Frank took me to a couple of doom gigs.
Wow.
I don't like it.
I can understand that, especially with doom gigs. It's
But the Toon Gig was kind of it was just this bizarre physical trance that everyone was in. It was kind of the gig was fantastic. The band were brilliant. I can appreciate the skill and the craft and in all of this stuff, and I love the aliveness of it, like, and how powerful and emotional it is to people in the pit. It's just that it's not necessarily my instincts when I first arrived were not to find that necessarily very comfortable when it was very angry and aggressive music.
Yeah, no, I understand that completely.
Yeah, I've got used to it. But...
No, I grew up a lot of different music all the time. I got my first real love when I first latched onto a type of music was rock and roll, and it was like pure rock and roll. It was like sort of, you know, Eddie Cochran, Jerry Lewis, that sort of stuff. And then for some,
Lewis, the angriest of all men, was he not the most terrifying of all men? But the music's not angry. The music's beautiful. Yeah.
But then, strangely, I suddenly sort of like I got a switch flicked in my head. A friend of mine played me an album by Black Sabbath, and all of a sudden, I was only into heavy metal.
Right.
All I wanted to listen to.
Sabbath that got you. That's interesting. See, I actually worked when for a long time, and I won't talk about it in much depth, but I taught one of Bruce Dickinson's children.
All right.
For a long time, and yeah, she's fantastic, and I've always been very fond of her. But the reason that, you know, I didn't know anything about Iron Maiden at all, which I think is why they thought that I was all right. I didn't know at all. And when they told me, they were like, "Oh, her dad's in a band. Will you be all right with that?" And I was like, "Yeah, I've heard of them. I've not heard of them. Of course, I'd heard of them, but But then when Frank was absolutely losing his mind about Bruce at one point and how important he was. I was like, oh, I know Bruce, and he was like, what? But I do. Since I do think I love. I mean, obviously it's quite different to Sabbath, but it's that realm of music I do find fun. You know, it is good fun. Like,
it's good fun.
Sabbath
it can be a little misogynistic at times, but it's fun.
Yeah, I feel like it's got better at that over the years, though.
Yeah, true. So back to you and your music. So you've got the album coming out
in May.
In May. And then after that, you're hoping you're going to be touring, hopefully.
Yeah, it should be. So there'll be a tour with the record, and then there'll be various festivals and bits over the summer, and then maybe another tour in the autumn, depending. Things are still... At the moment, it feels sort of like a fool's errand to try and plan too far ahead. Do you know what I mean? But there are things in the pipeline. Things will be coming out. I also have a doctorate to do, unfortunately, so there's some other stuff. But
you fit that in somewhere.
Yeah, squeeze it in.
So, do you have a kind of a plan of any kind? I've talked to bands who kind of go month by month, year by year, and other bands who have this glorious 10-year plan that by the time in 10 years' time they'll be playing Wembley or headlining Glastonbury or whatever. I
mean, I don't know. Can I borrow someone else's plan? That sounds great. No, I don't have a 10-year plan as such. I have because I am doing this training as a therapist as well. So my intention is obviously I want to build what I'm doing. I want to tour more often. That was the intention from the off. And the only reason that hasn't happened is because most of the opportunities to tour were obviously scuppered somewhat by the plague. So I do want that to be a more regular part of my life. I want to build it up to be a part of my life, but I do also have this other calling and working in therapy. So my intention is always to do both. So I don't know that I see myself playing Wembley in 10 years. No, that's maybe a bit of a stretch. And I'm not 21 anymore either. Do you know what I mean? So I sort of feel like my husband's already played Wembley, so boring. No, obviously not. Like, it's amazing. So not really, but I do what I really want to do. What I would really love to do is tap more into the folk world. So play a few more actual folk festivals. That's something I would really like to do. If I could ever do a tour with Dar Williams, I would die happy. That's quite high up the list. There are people who there are people, I have a list of people who I want to hear my songs so that I can die happy. Do you know what I mean?
Right,
There's not if they like them, I just want them to hear it. It would obviously be ideal if they like them. And yeah, but I think so. We've got a plan maybe for the next year or so. I'm going to put this record out in May, and possibly towards the end of the year or early next year, there'll be an acoustic EP, I think, unless that turns into another album. And I already know quite a lot of what's going to be on that. So in terms of the music I'm releasing, I have a plan coming up. And then, yeah, the live plan is just do as much as I can, please. That's kind of it.
Fair enough. And will there be any more videos, do you think?
Yeah, there will be. I think there will be. It's just a question of trying to be imaginative with it, because there's no money. They don't.
No.
People like them though, I think. Some people
Yeah.
like there being videos because it shows you, it's another opportunity to sort of show your personality and show who you are and what you're trying to say a bit.
And I think, if you look at the amount of views that people get on their videos, I think people still do watch them. They just watch them in a different way.
Yeah, but I think they do. And I think, we also, because the band have this theatrical background, we also we're keen storytellers on that front too. So we are thinking of videos, but sometimes you just, you've written a song, the song is the thing, it's always the focus, and then you go,
Yeah.
what on earth shall I do for a video for that one? Like, what? I don't know. And they're not always natural or obvious, but
No.
but yeah, definitely there'll be more videos. They are, I think, of decline. I think the industry considers them of declining importance. Do you know?
Yes.
So therefore, yeah, you have to kind of hobble them together with your wits and your imagination rather than a massive budget. But that can often make quite cool art anyway.
Yeah, definitely.
Breed something quite imaginative. So yeah, there'll be more.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. Well, thank you very much. I wish you all the best for the future and for the new album. I'm looking forward to hearing the new album and to seeing more videos, and to hopefully one day being able to come to you live.
Yes, well, I'd hope to meet you, and thank you so much for your lovely, insightful questions. And yeah, I hope you like the record when it comes out. You have to let me know.
I'm sure I will. I will let you know.
Yeah, please do.
Thank you very much. Thanks to everybody for watching. Look out for Guise. I'll post links to videos and other things like that. So we'll see you again soon. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Talking Music with Big Andy.